on to uh, the definition of feminist itself. So for today's debate, we're discussing on not liberal nor radical feminism, but just the normal feminism itself as the narrative that all women are better than men. It shouldn't be perished in this debate, but just the normal feminist. So instead, we're talking about the narrative that are supporting women having equal rights with men, and a society where men and women can have equal opportunities, and in society where this quote will be addressing the discrimination where women have might be metting in all throughout their lives. And now I'd like to move on to the mechanisms from our sides. So basically, the quote and the narrative would be similar to those films that are made by banking companies that don't promote the product itself, but rather give a heartfelt story filled with moral values that incites positive feelings within the viewers. How this ads essentially work in the business perspective is that the viewers will now associate the positive sentiments with these companies and regard them being humanizing, giving them a good impression, hence more likely to use their service. Not to mention, this also empower women within the positive feelings and incite it. It's a win-win scenario in today's debate. And our mechanism is that fashion and beauty can be used as the same approach to create the advertisement that include feminist narratives. For example, an advertisement could be a film that shows these struggles that women goes through in their everyday life, such being criticized for not meeting up with unrealistic society demands and physical appearance, being silenced, and at the end shows that women's and at the end shows the woman being encouraged by the narrator or people around them. It's all right and shows being the best version of themselves despite being imperfect. And the slogan shows beauty has no limit. Now, I'd like to move on to what are the purposes of really putting this feminist narrative. So again, I've mentioned in my mechanism, and so it is basically a sense of a way of voice up for the women towards over all over the world, because we all know how the capability of advertisement, the ability of it to be able to reach out to a lot of people, but and why don't we just utilize it for not only commercial use, and we can utilize its ability to reach out to all of the people by using it to raise awareness of feminism. Like we could, like, it's not just for women. Again, it could be for kids, it could be seen by men and seniors in all around the world. So it's not just women. So why don't we utilize the ability of this advertisement to raise awareness, and while at the same time not only for people that are not women, but for women themselves as well. It's a mental support. It's giving support and even help the women themselves that are not realizing the issue to realize and acknowledge, and even this advertisement are actually addressing all the discrimination and unrealistic expectation and social preference that was forced onto them since they were born and since women have exist in the earth. So there was all of this unrealistic discrimination and expectation that was set on them. These toxic beauty standards towards them were so bad that it might affect the confidence of a woman, and it should be addressed and should be realized by every single human's being, but not just women in the world. As an example, the quote that was given up by the in the motion, which is "I'm worth it." So it's basically a self-compassion, a self-loathing quote that should be addressed in an advertisement to so that every single person would realize and notice and acknowledge the problem that was going on with women. And another quote like "beauty has no limits." So it's a direct answer to the toxic beauty standards that women was set right up to. So it kind of reflect that how women can be however, so women can be whatever and whoever they like, and why are the world telling them what is the beauty should be, how beautiful should they be? No, women should define this by themselves and by saying that beauty has no limits. And the other example, like "love your curves." So this is a quote to embrace your own your own body and stop with all the anxiety going on with body and size anxiety. So by adding all this empowering women power quotes into advertisement, it helped to raise the awareness. And why is it important again? Because it is raising awareness is always the first step towards changes and all of the activities. And while the importance of raising awareness will be furthermore elaborated by my second speaker in the following speech. So with this, by supporting the inclusion of feminist narrative in advertisement and fashion beauty products, it helps with the whole world by raising awareness and not towards humans, not towards female, but all humans being. So with this, government sites are proud to propose, and I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this speech. And now I would like to invite the leader of the opposition to open up their side. Here.
Am I audible?
Yep, you are.
Okay. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Site government assumes that just because you have feminist narratives in your beauty products, it means that suddenly you get to spread feminism to even men and children. But today we will prove that that is untrue. So firstly, with our case setup, this debate is about whether the feminist movement should associate themselves with fashion and beauty products in advertisements. There are 3 paths to victory for our side of the house today. Firstly, tokenistic companies hopping on the femme washing trend for selfish interests is not going to structurally help the feminist movement to achieve their goals. Secondly, even if you don't buy that, we will prove to you that the existence of those narratives itself is bad. And thirdly, if you still do not buy these two, we can still prove to you that this is principally not what the feminist movement should be about. So my second layer to the setup is about about government's counterfactual. In their world, it looks like companies who usually don't actively support the feminist movement, trying to build up their reputation and tap into the feminist market to expand their consumer base. It also looks like um, a lot of commercialization and commodification. And note that this is only about the companies that profit off feminist movement for their own financial benefits. So for example, releasing products that revolve around the feminist movement and advertising them as feminist friendly, using catchy phrases like "I'm worth it," or hiring celebrities or prominent feminist figures to endorse these products in the advertisements, etc. The third layer is opposition's comparative. We do not support feminist narratives in fashion and beauty products, so the advertisements that exist on our site will not include feminist narratives, and we will advertise it in other ways, for example, promoting the selling point of each product, etc. We believe that the feminist movement should be a separate entity from fashion and beauty products because the feminist movement's end goal is to fight for gender equality and to empower women, which we believe this isn't the best way to do so. But do note that it's not about the fashion and beauty products itself, but it's about the method of advertising these products, i.e., whether or not feminist narrative should be included. And we're not banning fashion and beauty products, so people still can buy it. So for some responses towards the first speaker on site government, they mentioned how they're able to utilize the beauty products ability to reach out and spread feminism, and they just gave like a lot of examples of the phrases and what it means. However, we tell you that these advertisements are specifically targeting women because women are the company's biggest consumers, right? Men and children, although not completely, they still rarely use these makeup products. So how are you going to spread the idea of feminism to men and children who are not the target consumers of these products, right? Moving on into my arguments, I have 2 main arguments in my speech today. Firstly, about how it's principally unjustified to profit off women's insecurities. And secondly, how tokenistic companies hopping on the bandwagon and including these narratives in their products is harmful. So onto my first argument, how it's principally unjust to profit off women's insecurity. So firstly, we need to understand what the feminist movement is about. It's about helping women gain equal rights in society, because throughout decades, women are often being oppressed or looked down on regardless of their skills or sacrifices, right? And this is evident because we see a lot of sexist narratives, like how people say women are emotional or women are weaker than men, etc. So this movement aims to help women gain their social status and their right to speak up within society. Secondly, how is it bad for the feminist movement to happen on site government? Because on their side, they're endorsing beauty standards that are actively hurting members of their own movement. For example, you're telling people that they're only beautiful when they're putting on the makeup. And secondly, uh, um, when companies are profiting off the own members of the movement, it makes women feel insecure when they do not have makeup on. As a result, they will buy these products. This is wrong and unjustified. It's wrong and unjustified for these profit incentivized companies to profit off the insecurities of their own members. They claim that they're trying to support the feminist movement, yet they're just profiting off them. And we believe that we have other ways to help the feminist movement. For example, we have real life examples of female leaders, and there are other tangible policies, for example, maternity leave, right? All of these um, are all of these are able to raise more awareness that point towards kids and men, um, rather than supporting feminist narratives in beauty products. So moving on to our pragmatic argument, which is tokenistic companies hopping on the bandwagon and including these narratives in their products is harmful. The purpose of these narratives are, firstly, because these companies are profit incentivized, they don't genuinely want to help out the feminist movement. Instead, they're just using these narratives to lure people into buying their products. And secondly, these narratives are specifically targeting members of the feminist movement. They're capitalizing off their insecurities, which is bad because you're harming the people from your own movement, right? So, how does this targeting look like? Firstly, um, these companies will hire celebrities to advertise their product. And since young teenagers, they look up to these idols, they will follow what their idols do, right? They're not rational enough to assess if they want to use the makeup at such a young age, but they're just following whatever their idols do, which is using that makeup, right? And secondly, they target these people by advertisements, which makes them feel insecure because they use, as I've said earlier, they use models who fit the beauty standard to promote their product, which makes people feel like if they don't get that product, they're not like beautiful, they don't fit the beauty standards. And the impacts of this is that you're harming women from the feminist movement itself. You're making women feel more insecure, which is directly going against the feminist movement, and you're not helping this movement reaching its end goal. And even if these companies are not tokenistic, we believe that the narrative is still bad because because if the company's products is based off the saying "I'm worth it," but you're only worth it if you apply the makeup, that begs the question: what about the people who cannot afford the makeup? Right? It makes them think that they are not worth it, and these people are mainly young women who are exposed to the media, which is perpetuating toxic beauty standards. So these narratives will further harm them, and for all those reasons, I'm proud to oppose.
Thank you very much for this speech, and now let's hear from the Deputy Prime Minister.
Hi, am I audible and visible?
Yep, perfectly.
Okay. I prefer my POIs verbally, and I will begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. A very good afternoon to the honorable adjudicator, worthy opponents, and my fellow teammates. I am Christina Davin, the second speaker of the affirmative team, and I strongly agree with today's motion. As the second speaker, I will be offering rebuttals, and I will be giving points. Now, first of all, I would like to go with my rebuttals. So the opposition team has clearly not listened to our mechanism at all and has not understand. So I'm going to reiterate it again because I think they have misunderstood. Our mechanism is that fashion and beauty can use the same approach to create the advertisement that includes feminist narratives. For example, an example of an advertisement could be a film that shows the struggles that women go through in their everyday life, such as being criticized for not meeting with unrealistic societal demands in physical appearance, or being silenced. And at the end, it shows the women being encouraged by the narrator or people around them. It's all right. And shows being the best version of themselves despite being imperfect. And then the slogan shows beauty has no limits. But just wearing, like for example, as the motion has said, Zara's clothes, it's all right, beauty has no limits. Now, the next, I will go on to my rebuttals. The opposition team has talked about how feminist movement should not be associated with this beauty, fashion, etc., and that people will feel ugly without this makeup. Makeup is to make you feel more confident. It's supposed to enhance your features, to make you feel better with your features. Whatever they choose to do with their makeup is their own choice. But it is not marketed, and it's not supposed to be used to make them feel uglier, to feel bad without makeup. What it does is advance their features. For example, if you don't like your nose, a lot of women struggle with issues with their body or with issues with their face. Let's say they don't like their nose, then they can enhance their features on their nose. But it's still them. It's still how they look like. If let's say they don't like if they have a bump on their nose, it doesn't matter because they can do things for it, or you can make your bump more visible. That's how the empowering works. That is what we are advocating for. Or if they don't like their body, let's say they think they're too skinny, they think they're too fat, they wear a slim tight dress, they're advancing their features because we are saying beauty has no limits. It is worth it. That is what we are advocating for today. Now, I will go on to my points and I will be proving why that the inclusion of feminist narratives in advertisements is better. I would like to reiterate that we are not talking about radical feminism. That is not what we are talking about. We are not talking about where we say women are so much better than them, men. We are also not arguing about liberal feminism, where white feminism has essentially taken over. Therefore, if the opposition has any arguments related to that, it is completely shut off. What we are arguing for today is we are advocating for the empowerment of women. It is needless to say the prejudice women have gone through to gain their rights, or the prejudice still going on in like countries like Afghanistan. Hence, we want to empower women with this deep-rooted internal misogyny, sexism, or patriarchy within themselves. Because even though they are not going through active oppression as of now, they still may have these feelings, seeing people being discriminated, people like them being discriminated. They are going to feel something inside. They are going to feel less empowered. And that is the whole premise of our case. We want women to feel empowered, to rid the internalized misogyny within themselves. And that is the effect of supporting the inclusion of feminist narratives in our society. Now, as different types of bodies are shown in more ads and in cinemas, simply while watching YouTube, it plays a big part. Constantly watching the empowerment of people like you with the same struggles that you have, that you went through, it is eventually going to be ingrained in your brain. You will sooner or later believe what these advertisements are trying to tell you. If you see someone with the same body type with you, that everyone is fawning over, that everyone's like, she's so beautiful, you are going to believe you are beautiful too. That is how a beauty standard is. And that is why we are trying to include more feminist narratives like that into advertisements, etc. My second point today, that is why government supports this motion. We advocate for the empowerment of women, the engravement of positivity into our mindset and reading the false truth of the patriarchy. My second point today is about the awareness this brings. Typically, the issues surrounding feminism now is severe hatred towards, like a woman's severe hatred towards oneself, that they cannot fit into these unrealistic beauty standards that are now set. And inside opposition, they do not want to change anything. They want this to be status quo. They don't want so much because the feminist movement can be put someone else, but they are still neglecting a part of the feminist movement where we are empowering women, where women feel more comfortable and better in themselves. And whilst this is talked about often, how women cannot fit beauty standards, nothing is done to rectify it, just like the opposition. Everyone knows how unfeasible this beauty standard is, but the lack of empowerment overshadows this. By including more feminist narratives, it gives a chance for men to feel more empathy, to understand the atrocity that this harmful standard sets. A good example of this is like how Disney, like Walt Disney, includes more POC people in their movies to feel more inclusivity. Like in The Little Mermaid, how they have a black actress starring. The same thing is for the commercials, which include all types of bodies, which different kinds of features from women from many different cultures, many different countries. So women from all over feel recognized and they feel acknowledged. Now, I would like to repeat again our mechanism because the opposition has misunderstood. Our mechanism is that fashion and beauty can use the same approach to create an advertisement that includes feminist narratives. For example, an example of an advertisement could be a film that shows the struggles of that women go through in everyday life, such as being criticized for not meeting up with the realistic societal demands in physical appearance, being silenced, and then in the end it's just women being encouraged despite being imperfect, and the slogan being "It's all right, you're worth it, beauty has no limits," etc. So, okay. Yes, to summarize my points, the first one is that awareness this brings, not that everyone, because everyone knows this is an issue, but there's nothing we are doing to rectify it. So while we are awareing people of it, we are also rectifying it. Second of all, it is the reading the internalized misogyny and to make people feel more included, to feel better with what they are doing. With that, I end my case. Thank you. I proudly propose.
Thank you very much for this speech, and now let's welcome the Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
All right, just give me a few seconds to start my timer, please. I prefer verbal POI, so just unmute yourself if you have any to offer. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. The biggest flaw from side government is that there's a huge logical gap between how these advertisements and the narratives within it is going to help those women to challenge beauty standards and how it's going to spread awareness to people who don't support the feminist movement in the first place. I would flip this by saying that, in fact, it is your side that is feeding into the toxic beauty standards in the first place, because you're actively encouraging those tokenistic companies to profit off the insecurities of women on your side of the house. Before I move on to my extension, a couple of responses. Firstly, in their setup, they told us that they are going to use stories to illustrate these kinds of narratives and to use it in their advertisements. And this means to say that people are going to associate positive sentiments within business, and therefore this is a win-win situation. Firstly, this main focus should be about the feminist movement and their members. But sure, even if you want to talk about companies, I just think that it's just goes for companies on your side of the house. Because what about this anti-feminists that exist systematically on both sides of the house, right? It means that these companies are going to lose out their other consumers or investors who just don't support this kind of narratives, right? Secondly, or the more important issue then, about raising awareness and how they can just basically spread this kind of awareness to kids and men, because they are going to show the struggles of women within these advertisements, right? Firstly, as my L has already pointed out, these advertisements are much more likely going to target women themselves, because the point of these advertisements is to sell their products, to sell beauty products that are usually used by those women, right? Therefore, it is unlikely for this kind of narratives or this kind of messaging to reach men or kids or people outside the feminist movement. Our LO has already responded to this. However, there's still no response from DPM. Secondly, even if they told us that you have films or you show the struggles within this kind of films, I just think that number one, because these companies still need to promote their advertisements in the end of the day, they need to promote their products at the end of the day. So the main point of these advertisements is still about the product itself. It's not so much about the women themselves. Secondly, about the empowerment of women, because they see those struggles within films themselves. If you want to talk about films, I just think that we also have normal films that depict the struggles of women on our side of the house. I just don't know that why you have to exclusively use this kind of advertisements and only include this kind of struggles within the advertisements themselves. Next, it's also very unclear as to why suddenly men will have empathy just by seeing these kinds of advertisements, right? Because if they don't support this feminist movement in the first place, it's just very unclear as to how this kind of advertisements is going to evoke some sort of change within them. This is the process analysis that's missing coming from side government, and it's too late for their whip to respond to this. But even if in their best case that their men have some sort of empathy somehow on their side of the house, it's also very unclear as to what the impact is. Because after all, it's just an ad. Because for the majority of audience who watch these kind of advertisements, after they have watched it, it just means that they're just going to move on from their lives. It's just very unclear as to what kind of tangible benefit they are going to bring to the feminist movement. However, on the last layer of this issue, on the weighing them, we think that awareness itself is just not the most important thing right now. Because why do you even want to rely on men or the other people to change? Because it is the most important thing is to empower women themselves so that they have the confidence to challenge toxic beauty standards. And this leads me to the second issue about the beauty standards. But before that, yes, I'll take a point. Is there a point? In 3, 2, 1. Okay, now moving on. On the second issue then, about the beauty standards, I think side government also considered how bad the beauty standard is. So the question is, which side better deals with this, right? What did they tell us? I would like to point out a strategic mistake from them, because they just basically shot themselves in the foot when they said that makeup is to enhance their features. Yeah, it is exactly the point, right? It means that they also considered that it's because of the insecurities of women that then these women just want to use makeup to cover out their flaws and cover whatever parts that they are despite of. That if you keep promoting beauty products and specifically target these women, you are just making them to feel much more insecure about themselves because of those beauty models within the advertisement and stuff. And you are basically sending this message that you can only be beautiful if you use this certain product or you wear this certain kind of dresses. Right. However, on the comparative then, what I told you from first that it is very toxic, right? Because number one, these beauty products and beauty advertisements or companies, they just hire celebrities to advertise their products. This means to say when these young people or these women who look up to these idols or like celebrities, they are just going to follow what their idols do. If their own bodies just don't meet up to the standard of their idols, that means they are going to feel much more insecure. Secondly, because these advertisements are just going to perpetuate more of their insecurity, and because it is only when people feel insecure, that is when those companies get the opportunity to promote these kind of products to them. Therefore, we tell you that you are basically feeding them into their own insecurities on your side of the house. On the way then, because of the metric in this debate should be about what this feminist movement is about, and so which side is better able to help them. We have both sides agreed that this feminist movement is about like achieving gender equality on both sides of the house. However, we think that on our side of the house, we have the feminist movement, we better enable this feminist movement to help this and achieve their goals, because we think that on your side is basically those opportunistic companies that just do nothing other than profiting off those women, right? Because these companies just usually don't even actively support these women. They don't provide the donations, or they just don't actively give you the resources or like manpower for this feminist movement to function. It's these kind of companies that just profit off those narratives and profit off the feminist movement in order to have like their selfish gains. Therefore, we tell you that no change is going to happen on your side of the house. However, we tell you that it's worse on your side. And this brings me to my extension on my speech, right? So my extension is about how these narratives in of itself is problematic and how the commodification is bad, right? The analysis of this is that state government says that they are going to directly challenge to beauty standards and saying no to beauty insecurities because women should define beauty themselves. It is so ironic for government to say this because they are supporting companies telling women how they should feel about themselves, right? For example, they are telling women to love themselves, but at the same time, they are also promoting them beauty products. It is inherently contradictory and principally inconsistent because you cannot say that you want women to define beauty themselves, but still coercing them to apply makeup to enhance their own physical appearance or to cover up the flaws within their own bodies. The only reason why they need to enhance their features in the first place is because they feel insecure in the first place, right? Therefore, you are the side that's capitalizing on their insecurities. The end goal of those ads is to make consumers buy those products. Therefore, the end outcome on your side is those women falling deeper into the toxic beauty standards and submitting themselves into the patriarchy. For example, even if you want to say like love your curves, what if they just don't have curves? For example, if you want to say that I'm worth it, it's conditional on applying a certain makeup or wearing certain dresses, right? Therefore, the comparative, in the absence of kind of narratives in beauty products advertisements, we think that women have much more autonomy to choose what kind of products they want to use or whether or not they want to wear the dresses. We think that it's only on our side of the house. The feminist movement will be much more better. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the speech. Now let's hear from the government whip.
So, am I audible and visible?
Yep.
All right, I'll begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. A very good afternoon to the honorable adjudicators, worthy opponents, and my fellow teammates. So today's debate motion is that this House supports the inclusion of feminist narratives in advertisement of fashion and beauty products. So for example, a beauty company could go up with the slogan of "I'm worth it," or "Beauty has no limits," or "Love your curve." And our team strongly supports this motion. So first of all, I would like to begin by addressing again on the negative team's misunderstanding of our team's mechanism. So what our team is proposing that these fashion companies is that the negative team have constantly accused us of exaggerating women's insecurity, of how that these fashion videos being made, they are letting them chase unrealistic standards, that we are hiring beauty models to pose for them, that we are heightening these unrealistic expectations for women to follow. But this is not what we are arguing for. The negative team should really pay attention to our mechanism. And so for the sake of them understanding what we truly mean with our advertisement, I will repeat our mechanism again. So our mechanism is that fashion and beauty companies, they can approach to create the advertisement to include feminist narratives. What do we mean by that? We mean that these advertisements, they are not meant to be produced to exaggerate the insecurities. They make women more insecure about themselves. These narratives, these advertisements are made to show women that having an imperfect body, having an imperfect body is all right. That these, and they've also talked about how we are contradicting ourselves by saying that we are advocating for the application of makeup to enhance their bodies, to enhance their looks, to make themselves feel, to cover up the imperfections. But what we are arguing is that these advertisements are created. So what we mean by enhancing is not by covering up the imperfections. What we mean by enhancing is by enhancing their unique features, by enhancing their imperfections. As my second speaker have said, if they have a zit, if they have an irregularity in their nose, they can apply makeup to enhance more that their face is, their face has a bump. That imperfection is what we are trying to advocate for. In these advertisements, we are trying to advocate for that it's all right for women to have these irregularities in their bodies, that these makeup, they're meant to show the uniqueness of the female body. Is that what these advertisements are advocating for, is that these imperfections, they're not imperfections, that we should not adhere to unrealistic societal demands for physical appearance, but rather a woman can be whatever they want. And these makeup products are a way for them to express themselves, to express their imperfections to others, so that they can be more aware, so that other people can understand them more. Okay, so they've also stated on how like we're capitalizing on the insecurities, and how they have stated that how about people who are like anti-feminists? Would they lose their customers? Well, the thing is, how could a woman themselves be anti-feminist? How would a woman want to reject their own rights? Why would a woman even do that? So most of the people that are anti-feminists are men, or are men to begin with. So this doesn't really affect the business models at all. And the fact that we are producing these films, that these advertisements, because advertisements, they're generally far-reaching. And as my second speaker have said, these advertisements, they have a great method on inciting understanding towards men. Men can then understand women more through these ads, that they shouldn't just, it promotes understanding for men that women are not these unrealistic beings, that we should see women as who they are and not the unrealistic approach that we men tend to see them. So in this case, we are perpetuating understanding between men, between other people, to support their causes. They've also stated on how, like, why do you want men to change? They have stated, quote unquote, why you want men to change, why you want men to embrace feminism. If men don't embrace, and this is a misunderstanding, as we do not want men to embrace feminism. We just want men to be aware that the struggles the women are going through, that they're going through a lot of things, and that they could acknowledge the fact that this sort of a problem exists and they can be more sympathetic towards women. So what our team is advocating for essentially is the production of these advertisements, they are inhibiting the harmful stereotypes that we have towards women. We're redefining what it means to be a woman, not the old stereotypical standards that are often unrealistic, that society often imposes of them. And we're also helping them to be who they are, to get out of their comfort zones, to be the imperfectness as they are, as claimed by, as already stated by my first speaker, that beauty has no limits. So, and with that, I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the speech, and now let's welcome the opposition whip.
Am I audible?
It's a little bit quiet, but yes, can you try to say something again?
Is it better this way?
Yeah, it is better.
Okay. I'll prefer verbal POIs, so you can just interrupt my speech if you have any. And I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. So the purpose of the feminist movement is to help women, right? And what side government is doing is not helping the feminist movement and even harming the members of it. So we tell that on our side, we are able to help the feminist movement, and even though we are not able to help them, we tell that the narrative itself is still already bad. So before I move on to the clash of today's debate, a few pieces of responses to what side government has said, right? First thing, they've always been saying that we are ignoring their mechanism, and their mechanism is like they do not mean to exaggerate the insecurities of like the woman, right? But we tell that it is still bad on their side because this is the status quo, right? A lot of advertisements hire beauty models because it's easier to attract consumers, and they need to prove to us why companies are not to hire these beauty models, right? But even if in their best case that there are no beauty models, we know that the narrative itself is still already bad because the angle of the advertisements is to make consumer buy those products, and therefore the end outcome on your side is those women falling into deeper into the toxic beauty standards and submitting themselves into like patriarchy, right? Even if women buy more and more of beauty products, means that you are encouraging and continuously perpetuate toxic narratives on your side of the house. So secondly, they talk about like these beauty products are not to like tell people about their insecurities, and it's just to enhance their features, right? But we want to tell you that it is not only enhancing their good parts, right? But in most cases, it's about covering up like the parts that they don't want to show people. It's like the insecurities that they think that this particular part of their body is not like going to be accepted in society, and so they want to like cover it up. Even if not, right, we want to question you, what other reasons do people want to wear makeup in the first place, right? But even if you want to say that makeup is to enhance their features, on our side, we allow women to have much more autonomy to choose themselves, right? Because on your side, when certain advertisements have feminist narratives, it means that if you don't buy these products, you are not a feminist. And without these narratives, which is like on our side, women get to choose themselves about what they want to do, right? And also, before I move on, I would like to give like clarification, which is like our side we didn't say that we do not want men to change. Instead, we are saying that these advertisements would not be able to get men to change, right? And instead, government didn't tell us the process of men changing their misogynistic thoughts through their advertisements, and they just assume that it will happen. So yeah. Okay, so moving on to the clash, which is like whether or not these narratives should be used in like beauty products advertisements, right? First layer to this is the reason why side government wants this narrative, right? There's only two reasons that they've provided us, which is firstly, they want to help the feminist movement gain awareness, and secondly, they think that there's like toxic beauty standards, right? So our stance to this is that we tell that there are alternatives to help gain awareness, right? And so why should this method be used? And because you're like initially harming the members of the feminist movement, right? So government say that toxic beauty standards is bad, and that is exactly what is happening on their side of the house, because we like three things. Firstly, they're targeting women to buy the products because like when people see the feminist movement being advertised on that, they will buy it because to be included into like the movement. Secondly, they're making women feel insecure because they think that they're only worth it or beautiful if they put on makeup. And thirdly, they are luring women into buying those makeup, and they're like profiting off them, right? They tell us that the companies nowadays are being more inclusive and gave us some examples as well. But however, we tell that the majority of these companies are profit incentivized and society still perpetuates toxic beauty standards. Therefore, most companies, especially those like bigger companies, will still hire models and people who fit the beauty standards because they want to appeal to public and not lose consumers, right? Like if you want to like advertise your products, you will find like a person that has a like it's up to like the beauty standards, and then only like you can able to advertise. Putting like someone that is not on the beauty standard onto the advertisement, we don't think that people will be like interested in that product itself, because what they want to see is the outcome, right? And you're not giving them the outcome that they want to see. We do not think that this is the way the feminist movement should function, because firstly, you should not harm the woman in any way, and otherwise it goes against the feminist movement, right? Because what you are doing now is just to tell women that if you don't put on these makeups, you are then like not worth it. And we don't think that this is how the feminist movement should work. So moving on to the comparison, which is why our side wins on this clash then, right? The only thing they tell us is that they will help raise awareness. And we already responded to that before, saying that there are a lot of ways to this. For example, like women leaders, policies like maternity leave. And this is one of the they tell us that this is one of the way because it can lower like big awareness, but we tell that it is like a wrong way, right? Their act is going against the feminist movement itself, and we do not think that it is exclusive anymore. Second thing, their response to us is to say that makeup makes people feel more confident, and it's just like enhancing their features, right? But then we do not think that side government understands our response to telling you that this is the exact reason why people feel insecure and need makeup. The very first reason for people to want to use makeup is simply because they do not feel confident with their looks. What side government is doing is to then make it worse because they are luring people to buy the beauty products by putting that feminist movement narratives on their side. So the argument falls on this as well, and so we win the clash with those two reasons, right? So moving on to the weighing, which is like on our side's worst case, right? So the worst case on our side is that we do not raise awareness for feminist movement because like government claims that this can like if you put these narratives on like the advertisement, you can raise a lot of attention because advertisement is like very much accessible. And so we will just assume that the other methods to raise awareness for feminist movement is better. It's like not better than this method, right? But we tell that advertising is already bad, no matter or not we raise awareness for the feminist movement, because this is not how the feminist movement should function in the very first place. The purpose of the feminist movement is to protect the women and help them gain equal rights, and we do not see how this is going to happen when side government is profiting off the feminist movement members. Secondly, on side government's best case, right, which is like when they are able to raise awareness towards feminist movement. So what about like awareness, right? You cannot reach men and children, and because like we tell that mainly women consumers who already know about feminist movement is going to be like the biggest consumers, right? Like no matter how you compare it in any statistics, women will still use makeup more than men. So we tell that they are not actually helping out the movement because like they're not doing things like donating money, or like they're not building infrastructure that will directly help the feminist movement, etc. So even though if you manage to raise awareness, nothing is going to happen. You're not going to help these women out, but instead you are just like capitalizing off them, right? So we're telling you that they are just raising awareness, but at the end of the day, even though on their best case, they are still not solving the root of the problem. So with all those above reasons, I'm proud to oppose. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this speech. And to wrap up the opposition side, I would like to invite the opposition reply.
All right. Just let me start my timer again. I'll be starting in 3, 2, 1. Somehow, the government kept on accusing us of not understanding the mechanism. Okay, so let's deal with the mechanism, right? So what the mechanism is about is that they are going to depict the struggles of women in probably something like films, right? However, as I already pointed out in second speech, firstly, the main focus of those ads are still to promote the products, right? Because these companies want to they are profit incentivized, therefore they can only gain profit by selling out their product to more people. Therefore, the main point of it is still to promote their products and to want women to buy those products. So therefore, it means that in those advertisements, they need to forcefully insert a plot where they can sell products. For example, it's only after the women character inside this advertisement use their product, then they become more confident. So we tell you that the narrative itself is still bad. Secondly, it's also very not exclusive, right? Because we on our side of the house we still have films, so I don't know why you must use this kind of ads in order to empower women. Secondly, and somehow in WIP they have this new analysis of not using beauty models, right? Firstly, it's too late and this cannot be credited because we have already told you about this from first. Secondly, moreover, it is their burden to prove why it is likely for companies to not use those beauty models, right? Because it's what we already see in status quo. Most of these advertisements still endorse those beauty models, and this is how they're going to attract those consumers, because people are attracted to beautiful things, right? Therefore, we tell you that it's still very likely on their side of the house. Now moving on to a couple of clashes, right? Firstly, on beauty standards, what did we say, right? We told you about how this is inherently perpetuating the beauty standards itself, because when you can only gain profits and you can only sell your product when these women are insecure about themselves in the first place. However, their response is that, oh, they are not perpetuating those beauty standards without any analysis given, right? They only say that it's because they are going to depict those struggles. Sure, you are going to depict those struggles, but the narrative itself is still bad for these women. And I've already engaged with this in my extension, right? Because no matter what kind of narratives you want to promote on your side of the house, for example, like if like love your curves and so like beauty has no limits, I think that those narratives itself is still very misleading and it's still very disempowering to women itself. Therefore, their one liner of like not perpetuating beauty standards is still insufficient to disprove all our claims. Secondly, about the awareness itself, I would like to clarify that it's not about us not wanting men to change. It's just that in this debate itself, no matter on which side, you just can't change men simply by watching a 3 minutes video, right? So therefore, it's not about the awareness. And given that the target audience in this kind of ads is just not men, therefore we tell that it's just not part of the debate. However, what is part of the debate, right? It's about the tangible change that we have told you. Number one, these companies in of itself is just very tokenistic. They are not the active supporters of feminist movement, and therefore I don't know why the feminist movement has the incentive to associate themselves with these kind of companies, right? Because these companies are just not going to do any good for this movement. Secondly, on the individual women themselves, I think it's still bad because you are actively perpetuating the beauty standards that is going to harm them much more. On the comparative, however, we told you that women have much more autonomy on our side of the house, because if you don't have kind of narratives existing in the advertisements themselves, and you are not actively ostracizing those women who turn away from those advertisements that contain those feminist narratives, I just think that women just have much more choice to choose what kind of makeup they want to wear and what kind of clothing they want to wear. Lastly, in the principle, note that this is our first argument that is still left very unengaged to by side government, right? So the summary of this is about how like the goal of the feminist movement is to gain equality within both genders, right? But what happens in side government is that they're endorsing beauty standards that are actively hurting members of their own, because it's only when these members are insecure, then they are going to buy these products. You as a feminist movement actively supporting this, that means that you are also supporting these companies profiting off the insecurities and the struggles of your very own members. This is not what the feminist movement is about. The feminist movement is supposed and obligated to help their own members. Therefore, we tell you that we do not support this form of advertising. Very proud to oppose that.
We're endorsing actually.
Hi, am I audible and visible?
Yep.
Okay, I will begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. A very good evening to the honorable adjudicator, body opponents, and fellow teammates. I am the reply speaker for the affirmative team, and I strongly agree with this motion. As the reply speaker, I will be analyzing the clashes, and I will be giving a rundown of our points and why the affirmative team clearly takes this debate today. Now, the first thing I would like to analyze is the clash between the powers of the point of empowerment. So the opposition team says it is not empowering, and they did not they kept mentioning how it's not empowering because you're trying to cover up a feature, but that speaker has already said it can be used to enhance the feature, and these ads are specifically catered to enhance your feature. Let's say you have a bump in your nose, you want to make that bump bigger, etc. You just want to enhance it, you want to show it more. That is what we are trying to say today. That is what we are advocating for. So that point is not valid, and we clearly take that point. Second one is awareness. They talk about how if you watch a 3-minute video, you're not going to feel awareness. You're right. That's status quo. That's why we support awareness. That's why our team is advocating for more of this instilled in ads, more ads showing this. So you see it so much. It's no longer a 3-minute video. You see it every day in billboards. You see it in cinemas. That's why people feel more empowered. They want to watch it more. And they said it cannot cater towards men. But as my third speaker has mentioned, like, men are not going to change from this 3-minute video. Like my third speaker has mentioned, that if it's everywhere, if you see it in cinemas, you see it in billboards, if you see it everywhere, you're going to feel better about yourself. That is what we are talking about. That is the empowerment that we are saying. Now, that is our points. The opposition team's only points is talking about how makeup makes you feel worse and that you can just use movies for that. You can use empowering movies. Yes, we agree with you. You can use empowering movies, but you can also use advertisements. That is what we are talking about. We are saying that these advertisements make you feel more empowered because, like we said, you see it more. There's more advertisements generally. Like you just see advertisements more when you want to go to a cinema to watch said movie. You will see many different advertisements. That is what we are saying. Second of all, I'm going to revamp our point. The empowerment. You feel better when you see yourself on camera. You feel better, and that is what we are advocating for. We want these people to feel better with their body size, and we are not devaluing them saying, oh, if you buy these clothes, then only you'll look better, because in that sense, then just don't buy makeup at all. You should stop promoting makeup because it's supposed to make you feel better. So with that, I'll give a rundown. Our points is about awareness and empowerment. The opposition team is talking about exploiting to make you feel better, which I've already counted, and then they say that empowerment does not work, which we also counted. So with that, I would like to proudly propose. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this speech, and thank you very much for what was a very good and very engaging debate. As you guys may already know, this is a closed round, meaning that you will not be getting the decision right now, nor you will be getting any feedback. However, after the draw is released, which is gonna be after the break is announced, I believe, you feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or would require any feedback. You can reach out to me via Discord. My username there is the same as the one on Zoom. Okay. And as I promised, I will check on the recordings and will get back to you probably by the end of tomorrow, but maybe even earlier. All right, so if you guys don't have any questions, I wish you best of luck. And have a nice rest of the day. Bye-bye.